Hello, viewers and our potential listeners who will be listening on the audio podcast. Welcome to another episode of the AfroGamer Podcast. Yesterday, we started a series of speaking about esports federation in Africa, and today again we have another wonderful guest in our midst. He is a man who wears many hats, and this time, also just like last year, the news broke where the Global Esports Federation launched a development federation in Africa. The African Esports Development Federation was, adopted to focus on African esports. And today we'll be speaking to the Secretary General for the AEDF, Mr. Sayo Owolabi. Welcome to the podcast today.
Hi, Ife. I'm sure you know the Mister is unnecessary, but since you put it there, I'll just take it. But it's great to be here. Great job the Afro Gamer's been doing promoting African esports for the last 2 years or thereabouts or more. Um, Great to be here. Let's get the conversation going.
Yes, and once again, our co-host Omar, welcome back again.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me.
Okay, before we jump straight into it, we always have to pay our bills. We have to give our shout out to our sponsors. Like always, our episode is sponsored by Mobile, which is the competitive mobile app for gamers in Africa. So if you're a mobile gamer, you can go ahead, log on to www.themobile.com. You would see games you can play, and of course, what people like the most, win cash prizes. And also, let's not forget, we also have our proud sponsor, Ethnic District, where you can shop and sell authentic African products on their website, as you can see behind me. So if you are a vendor, you create whatever, any product that's of African heritage, Ethnic District is the place for you to sell and also buy. So now let's jump straight into it. I know people are fired up to hear so much about the AEDF and the GF as a whole. Omar, I will always give you the mantle to go ahead and start things.
Okay, so I think we should start with the obvious. What is the African Esports Development Federation, and how does it stand out from the other bodies we have here?
All right. Okay, my mic is on. Thanks a lot, Omar. Africa Esports Development Federation, as the name goes, is the development arm for Africa, set up by the Global Esports Federation in September 2021. So just about 4 months, not yet 4 months, September 15th till now, the body was created. And everything about the GEF is just the AEDF is the miniature of it. So the GEF sees itself as the convening body for esports, not a regulatory body, not an administrative body, but a convening body for esports. So that's the same thing the AEDF would do. And for the AEDF, the mandate is to ensure the growth and development of esports on the continent of Africa. And that's the mantle that's been given to myself as the Secretary General and the President, Thomas Sithole of Zimbabwe, who is the veteran sports administrator and, of course, has been doing stuff in esports also as a board member at the Global Esports Federation and also as the President of the Africa Esports Development Federation. On difference, I think the difference is usually, for me, personally, I leave it to people to say, because that's the same question I'm asked about the Lagos Esports Forum, where I sit as the founder CEO. I usually leave people to talk about the difference. So let the result that would be seen over time or has been seen in time past from the GF, let it be the judge for what is the difference between the AEDF and every other organization.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you for that, Shayo. To all our viewers, if you have any questions for Shayo or comments, feel free to put that in the comment section and we'll go ahead and address it. Shayo, I liked how you opened up saying, or rather not opened at this time, closed with, you don't want to brag and let people be the judge of, what you've done or what the AEDF will be doing. Being one of the um, forefront forefront generals in quotes of esports. And when I mean forefront, like you are active, you're doing stuff with the Lagos Esports Forum, and you've been given the extra role as the Secretary
Yeah.
General. There's a problem across the line, which every conversation with esports stakeholders, that conversation comes up. And that's going to be my own question to you. When you talk about global esports, Africa is always either excluded or there's a limit to our participation, basically.
Yeah.
And since now, you are not heading, you're the Secretary General for a regional federation from a global body and also a player in Africa, you've tasted it also in terms of exclusion. How is the AEDF going to tackle that? Because that is a huge problem. If you talk about any title, when there's global, we're always saying, why is Africa
True.
not brought to the
As
party?
Africa
So,
excluded.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
So the big question that would be like an aside to your question is, who is speaking for Africa? Because most times you discover that there's really nobody speaking for Africa. We just sit down here and we say, "Oh, we're excluded." But if we don't show what we can do, I'm not sure anyone would involve us. So I'll give you guys a background story. In December 2020, the Global Esports Federation, that was just we joined the Lagos Esports Forum, joined in September. Coincidentally, a year after was when I was next named the SecGen. We joined in September 20. We got our letter confirming us as a member of the GEF, and by December there were calls for regional partners who would host regional tournaments for the World Connected Series. Do you know that it was only us? And I think at that time there were about 6 members from Africa. Now there are 13 members of the GF. There were about 6 members at that time. It was only the Lagos Esports Forum that stepped into want to host the regional tournament then. And it was a huge success. We hosted it on the Call of Duty Mobile $5,000 prize pool, Sub-Sahara Africa tournament. The truth is, think about it. If we had not stepped in, do you know that Africa would yet again have been excluded from that particular tournament? So there's a need for Africans, we as Africans, to put in the work, show up, let our voice be heard, let our works be seen if we really are going to stake a claim in this stead. Now back to what we're talking about. So having that kind of knowledge, that kind of experience, that kind of mindset, I as a Secretary General would definitely, and that's the same admonition I've given people who sit on different commissions, because there are also commissions at the GEF, is to let our voices be heard as Africans. Not in the space of activists, not like we're activists, but just to let people, the other guys from the other regions. So Singapore is the headquarters of the GEF. Let Singapore know. Let every other person who comes to the table, wherever we're gathered, know that Africa has the capacity to let things happen and make things happen. And that, for me, is what the AEDF will do. There will be a lot of global tournament. The Global Esports Games is there. We had the first one last year. Unfortunately, Nigeria couldn't make it because of the travel ban. Only Libya represented Africa, and so many other things will be happening in terms of events under the stables of the GF in coming months. The task for us as the AEDF is to ensure that Africans are involved, and we are involved in quality capacity. It's not just about flooding it with Africans, with our quality. We need to show qualitative representation, and that's what will make the difference in us saying that, oh, we want this global exposure. Because the truth is, we can just be about the numbers. We can just make up the numbers without necessarily bringing anything to the table. So we as Africans should think to bring something to the table, while we also think to take something off the table.
Okay, let's hold that thought. Umar, I know you might have a follow-up question for this response. Let me just read a few comments. So we do have Hausa. Hello, Hausa. It says, good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. We do have Stephen Reed watching from Scotland. Thank you for watching, Stephen. Sarah is saying my name. Hello, Sarah. Thank you for tuning in also. Umar, Africans, from what Shaya has said, Africans are not doing as much, stepping up to the table, kind of saying, hello, we are here, we want this, or we are doing this. Do you have a follow-up question, or what's your take on that?
Mm, well, I think yes, I can agree with Shayo to like a point. I don't wholly agree because I remember when the African Esports Championship was supposed to hold in I think 2019. Um, that's when a lot of organizations realized that they couldn't just, if they really wanted a FIFA tournament on the scale that they were hoping um, for some reason, South Africa was the only African country that had a license or was given permission by EA to hold that tournament. So it caused a lot of uproar at the time. So I think, and that was a period when a lot of people were, it actually sounded more like a movement at the time because a lot of people were bombing streams and complaining why Africa wasn't represented in the Nations Cup and other international tournaments that are going on. So yes, I agree with you that we haven't stepped up. Quality is really lagging, but the titles, I think the titles that we're really interested in from the beginning, we were not given the opportunity to compete. Some players were leaving Africa to go to Europe to compete in EA sanctioned tournaments. But I know that is
Yeah,
changing now because this year, at least,
I think we
Nigeria,
have five
Ghana, the
countries.
other
Yeah,
African
five
countries.
countries have been included.
more
Yeah.
countries have been
Yeah.
included. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yes, that's another conversation in terms of the publishers, and that space is, as we all know, a very very complicated one because there are issues as regards internet, there are issues as regards servers, there are many other issues beyond. So at this, it still comes down to us as Africans, really. Where is all this infrastructure that should be provided by either the government or whoever else should be providing them? So those are the big questions. Or even the private sector, you understand what I'm saying? So it could be either or, it could be a PPP thing, or even just the government. But the bottom line is, as Africans, we should let our voices be heard. You talked about the 2019 tournament. I don't know anything about that, but the question is, was there a follow up? So I remember that my team reached out to the Activision guys, and they gave us the strata of the level of competitions you can do and the level of involvement they would need to get into with you if you are to use their title. And we have followed up with that conversation. Was there a follow up to that conversation, or did they leave it since 2019 and not say anything again? You don't expect the guys to be the ones to chase you. You need to keep the conversation going and keep asking the questions, because the truth is, if you walk away, they have millions of other people that they would be talking to and
Reason
are
why it
trying
was
to
a
get
big
their
issue.
attention.
Yeah, the reason
Exactly.
why it was a big issue at the time was because only one member, well, let me not even say one member, because we had more, there was more than one South African organization in the group, but one particular South African organization in the group seemed to have the rights.
No.
So they were more or less dictating what everybody else would do. And all the other nations, or at least a majority of them, felt like it was unfair. Um, if the rights are for the African continent, then it should be shared among the countries, and we shouldn't be following one organization's tune. So they did actually follow up. That's why I said there was a huge uproar and things. But at least it seems to have worked itself out, because after all the clamoring and all, we are now part of the roadmap for
The global
esports.
series. Yes, the global
Yeah.
series. It's a good one.
Okay, so let me read another comment. We do have Kwesi Hayford saying, watching from Ghana. Thank you for watching. More comments from Stephen Reed. He said, which African countries are currently producing the most and most quality esports competitors? He still has a comment here, so I would allow him, I'll read that before we address it. Also, is access to technology and infrastructure, internet access in code, an issue for less able countries? I am thinking about differences between South Africa or Nigeria versus Rwanda or Ethiopia, for example. How can Africa as a whole help all countries compete fairly? So it's a two question in one. Queen Arrow has joined us from Kenya. Thank you, Queen Arrow, for joining us.
No, I
So I
think
will, yeah, so I'll allow Shayo answer the first question, and Umar can tackle the second one. And if Shayo wants to add to that, he can do that. So the first question, Shayo, which African countries are currently producing the most and most quality esports competitors from what you have noticed?
Tough question. And I think I was having a chat with someone in the course of the week, and I said there's an adage where I come from that when you have not seen another person's father's farm, you say your father's farm is the biggest.
Mhm.
So the truth is because we do not have, and that's why I said when I started out that with the AEDF we're looking at convening, which is like an aggregation, because we do not really have a space for aggregation. You really can't point and say this is where the largest, this is where the biggest things are happening, because there are pockets of activities happening here and there. So for me, I would say that question can be answered when we have an aggregation. There's a lot happening in Nigeria, for example, and I can and that comes from different spaces. South Africa would stand in this question as the answer, but that's because of the comparative advantage they have in South Africa. But in places like Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, where there are a bit more challenges hitting the mark, then you would see that people are really doing their best to ensure things are happening. In Nigeria, for example, I can point to about four organizations that are doing things. And when we talk about, so that's for the first part of the question in terms of producing the most. And when it comes to competitors, I think South Africa still stands in that space. Though the North Africans, and most times we don't like to talk about them as Africans because they relate more with the Arabic sports. the
Yeah.
North Africans also the North Africans also have that comparative advantage, just like South Africa has. So those two sides would really be on the first tier. Then the other countries I mentioned, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Zambia, and the likes will come in second tier. Then the others can be at the bottom of the pyramid.
Okay. And the second part of the question, Umar, do you want to take a crack at it?
Okay. So I think when it comes to infrastructure, technology, internet, especially, it's a problem for a lot of countries in Africa. But then it's not just the fact that, okay, maybe the internet service isn't really that good, or it's too expensive, which both are the case. It's also that there are hardly ever any servers in or around Africa. So that's why, like North African esports, I think one of the reasons why African esports has is a lot more advanced than, let's say, West Africa is because their proximity to other to that would be the Middle East or Europe or wherever, and that proximity means that they can connect with the servers in those regions. So better smaller ping means a better gaming experience. So yes, I think would be what you said about technology infrastructure being a problem for the countries. It's not. It's a majority of the countries, not just a few. Then differences between South Africa, Nigeria, Rwanda. Yes, I think Shah already said something about this. It's South Africa has access to a lot more infrastructure than
Infrastructure, yeah.
the other countries that you mentioned. But then, unlike North African countries, it doesn't have that proximity that we just use as an excuse for North Africa. They just happen to have been in the game a lot longer than the rest of us. Then,
Yeah, I think for the last one, I said, how can Africa as a whole help
yeah.
all
So
countries compete fairly?
that's one of the interesting things that has happened because, like what I mentioned about the AEC, we have the African Esports Development Federation, we have the African Esports
Association.
Association. Like all these bodies are popping up, and they weren't. One might assume that okay, the only reason why African Esports Development Federation popped up was because GEF saw that there was an issue, Africa wasn't being properly represented, or the quality of events was poor or something. But it was actually because nations were coming together, groups in all these countries were coming together and trying to do things as a single unit. That's how the African Esports Championship was born. And that's how many other organizations were born. That's how a lot of us actually know each other. And even though we could still do a lot more, I think it's the support we've shown each other up until this point that has allowed these international organizations to take notice, and not just the international organizations themselves, but also the developers, the IP, those that own the IPs for the games we love. Tekken wasn't I think last year, COVID year, that was the first year that an African event was going to be part of the Tekken champ. I can't remember what the name of the championship is, but their big tournament. The same thing happened to, I think, okay, that was Fedja. Fedja was supposed to be a qualifying event for the Tekken championships. There's the FIFA situation this year, more African countries included.
African
So
countries.
like it's we're already united and we're becoming stronger, we're getting better. And that's why these organizations are noticing us and trying to help us reach the potential that we have.
Okay,
I hope
wonderful.
that answers everything.
Answers good. Yeah. So Steven said, interesting. Thank you. We need the esports major gaming companies and organizations to begin to invest in African servers, gaming experiences, and infrastructure. I totally agree with you on that. Quinaro,
Just to add a bit, sorry, let
okay,
me
go
just add a
ahead.
bit to what and I will take it back to the Lagos Esports Forum. You were talking about the AEDF and say that for us at the Lagos Esports Forum, we discovered, and that's why we actually activated that for the GEF's World Connected Series in 2020. We discovered that it's easier to have more people in terms of access and to beat down the challenges with digital infrastructure, that's data and all that, to do mobile. And that's why it's interesting that since that time and now, everyone seems to be advocates of the mobile gaming, which we started out as a major focus at that time. So one big way for Africans to beat the challenge is digital. Yes, we know that games are played on console and on PCs, but mobile is also, and we can see most developers also creating the mobile version of their game. So it means the mobile is not just the future, it's the now. So we can begin to think about that as Africans. Then for how we can get all the countries involved, I think we need to start taking it offline. Because it's at that point it will be down to everybody's skills level, not limitation of internet or limitation of servers and all that. Everyone plays at par. Everyone is coming together. And that's the way esports has been with ESLs, events, LAN events, and all that. I think it's time for us to begin to have those kind of events where everyone is playing at the same level. Then we begin to have equal experiences as Africans.
Okay, Shayo, thank you for that.
Well,
Just a
COVID
moment.
kind of put a dent on that.
Yeah, COVID sure did for that one. But
Yeah.
well, I guess things are taking
Things are easing out, yeah, so we
yeah.
can begin to consider that.
So Queen Arrow, before you give your question to Shayo, I just want everyone to know that this episode once again was sponsored by Mobile. It's the competitive app for mobile gamers in Africa. As you see, play games on your mobile device and win some cash. I know people like the last part, and so as you can see, you can follow them on their social media platforms, and then you can see their posts, you can see what tournaments are upcoming. There are games for everyone, so you don't even have to be the competitive side like Call of Duty Mobile or PUBG or PS Mobile. Even if you play the casual games or the hyper casual games like 8-Ball Pool, Ludo King, there are tournaments for you to play and compete. And of course, like you said, winners get rewarded for their skills and then, walk home with a lot of, cool cash prizes. And also, as you can see behind me, Ethnic District. If you're a vendor, if you want to buy African products, the place for you to go is Ethnic District, where you can shop and sell authentic ethnic African products. Winaru, are you with us? Are you ready for Shire?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so let me just put your question on the screen.
Okay, so Shayo, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And I wanted to ask, I've seen the GF has made an initiative whereby during the last games in Singapore, you had a female daughter tournament, and now with the ESL announcing that they're going to be having $500,000 prize pool for the female CS:GO tournament. It's become a bit of an emotive topic on Twitter. So, in the debates concerning female-only events, where do you stand? Is there a need for them, or should female competitive players stick to the mixed gender events that we have as of now?
And part of that question is, where does the AEDF stand on this matter? Shall you unmute?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
So, like I said, sorry, I was saying that I stand with the ladies, 100%. I believe the ladies, the same way Falcons is the Nigerian female team, the same way the Falcons doesn't play with the Super Eagles at AFCON. It's the same way the ladies should have their own tournament. So I sincerely believe and are very much aligned. And I'm sure, like you mentioned, that's the same thinking for the AEDF since the GF, which we are modeled after, has taken that position. And I think it's a no-brainer, really. Why would we have? Yes, there can be competitions that is mixed, because the other level to that conversation is the fact that a Queen Arrow against a regular lady is a no, but the person can't dare. So, so Queen Army is on the level of some men. If I were going to say that, so there are ladies whose skill level is already matching with some guys, so you can get to participate in some tournament. But the truth is, over time, we'll even have some other ladies who will build up. So that's why we need to create programs that gets people from, just as we have in games, beginner level to experience to professional to expert.
To world
Then
class.
we can have F to world class. Then we can have everyone play on the same level. Because the truth is, for the ladies especially, it's always not easy to get to that top of the level in the immediate. So they will build gradually towards it. I remember when we ran the World Connected series in 2020, taking you back to that again, we had an all-female team and they made it to the top 8. Now there were 89 teams from
Teams from
15
15
countries
yeah.
participating in that tournament in Sub-Saharan Africa in Call of Duty Mobile, or Samina, that's their name. They were 6th, I think, position at that tournament. So there are ladies whose level is there and can rub shoulders with the guys, but there are also ladies who are just coming up. So we need to build those ones. But the truth is, the ladies should have their own thing, because that's what is happening in the ideal world. And I believe that's what it should be. And to the other part of the question, the AEDF definitely would be creating stuff for the ladies. As you can see on the board of the GF, there's very high female representation, and ladies should have their own thing when it comes to the gamers also. And I believe you, Queen Arrow, as a member of the Athletes Commission, would also lend a voice for Africa to enjoy the same thing.
Thank you for that. Let me just read a few comments, and I'll come to Umar if he has any comments about that. That inclusion.
What? It's like me against the world.
No, everyone has spoken. It's just you. But let me just quickly read more comments. Kwesi Hepford said, creating synergy in Africa esports is crucial for sustainability, but also the creative adaptation to the African experience. I like that. Steven said, the first African FIFA Global Series held in 2021, but no participation from the newly added countries. Any plans to empower athletes to participate in the future? Okay, that's a question for Shayo. And he also said, by empowering, diversifying investment schemes for coin purchases, equipment purchases. Oh, okay, this is a lot for FIFA. And Kwesi said, 2022 FIFA Club Global Series has African countries. Okay, I guess he responded to Steven for that. So Umar, back to you. Inclusion. Do you still are you now bending over towards they have their category first? then they come into the mix?
No, I'm still basically where I was. I don't think I'm going to shift. It's and my position has never been one or the other. It's always been both, because I feel that the female gamers that are that skill ceiling, like they've exceeded what they're at the top. They're at the top level. They're some of the best players in the game. They're not going to enjoy the gender
Exactly.
female only
Yeah.
events, tournaments, because the competition they're going to be facing isn't going to be on the level that they're used to. So they're basically losing out. We should have both at least.
Both, okay.
But then it seems like the whole conversation is just do female once we've established female. But then what happens to the already established players?
Like Queen Arrow, exactly.
But that was the point.
Exactly.
That was the exact point I made. People like
Mm.
Queen Arrow cannot calm down to start playing. People were probably
Tekken
on
for
C
Tekken
level
for
when she
beginners. Yeah, she
No,
got
yeah,
they
on
D
could.
level when she's on an A level.
No, but then they
I
could.
just
It's
feel
about
the
knowing where the because okay, the whole issue in the first place is not that there aren't female gamers. It's that it's usually that they don't feel comfortable in the community. There's you have when since it's male dominated, you have a lot of misogynistic ideas, um what do you call it, toxicity. Like there's a lot of the environment isn't usually welcoming to women because for I don't know decades, generations, we believe that women are the weaker sex. In esports, unlike other sports where you might say
traditional
okay,
sports.
a strength is important. In esports, it's your intellect, it's your hand-eye coordination, it's your like there are lots of things, and these things we all share. It doesn't matter what gender you are.
what
it's
gender
not
you.
it's
Yeah.
not about how strong you are. It's something that you can develop no matter who you are. That's why we also have gaming for the I'm trying to find the right term for it.
Special people.
There's okay, let's call
Special
them
needs.
special, but
Special
there's
needs.
yeah,
Special needs
special
Yeah.
needs.
people. Mm-hmm.
So that's why we have esports for them, because even though they might not have the same faculties
Capacity
as,
for traditional sports. They are included
there's
Yeah.
into
still ways
esports.
that they can compete.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
inclusive,
That's
being inclusive is actually opening the door to everybody and letting them
everybody.
choose how they want to compete, and
Where they
not us
wanna be. Yeah.
deciding for all of them.
I like that. I like that. I know we've been speaking on this. I think Queen Arrow should weigh in on this. Queen Arrow, your personal take, either
Um,
or both.
I'm actually for both. Both for what do you call it? Female only tournaments, and I'm also for mixed tournaments. As you know, as you've mentioned earlier, that mixed tournaments allows maybe the women who've actually progressed, skill levels have progressed considerably to compete on I'd say a level that matches their skill and experience. Well, for female tournaments, it still allows the ladies who have advanced far enough to compete. At the same time, it provides a very safe environment, for them to just compete without, I'd say, the additional scrutiny of having to, having to deal with harassment. And at the same time, it allows, for, talent which hasn't been highlighted to, have the chance to come up and be recognized as, skilled esports athletes, while allowing also the people who are just coming into the game to learn without, feeling, I'd say, discouraged. It's like the same issue with chess. Chess is a mental game. Video games are a mental game, but for chess, they also have women-only tournaments that allows, it highlights the female talent and allows them to have a secure environment to compete and and progress.
Thank you for that, Queen Arrow. That is very very nice. Like they said, it will be surprising for you to compete in Tekken for beginners. A lot of people will be like, oh, no, 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 no. There will be an opera. So
They would quit.
I exactly. So I think yeah. We would like to see you in an African Tekken face off, definitely with the guys. No no restrictions for gender as a whole. Okay, so let's round up with this question, and I'll be asking it. So, Shayo, while only coming into existence in September 2021, what projects has the African Esports Development Federation begun, and what can we expect to see in 2022?
Okay, so there's no public announcement yet, but we have an MOU in place with an organization in Africa that would set the tone for the entire continent. So that is meant to be the model to which we're going to reach out to other regions. So it's going to be a regional thing, and that will be the model via which we'll use an in-route into every of the other organizations. One other thing we will be doing, and that's for me is what will shape the plan for the continent, is to actually listen to members on the continent. So members who are already part of the GEF and those who will be coming on board in the course of the year. Because the truth is, most of the time we're asking, what would you do for Africa? But have we really sat down to listen to Africa? One thing the GEF does on a quarterly basis is to have a town hall meeting. So I believe that we should also do the same. We need to listen. What is the challenge with Nigeria? What is the challenge with Ghana? What's the challenge with Kenya? What's the challenge with South Africa? If we don't know what the challenges are, how do we deploy the resources and every other thing in terms of helping these organizations to grow? Now, we've seen instances, and we must have that at the back of our mind. The GEF is particular about the setting up of federations across the continent. But we've seen instances where when these federations spring up, the current gatekeepers are being skimmed out. Have we asked ourselves why this is happening? It has happened in Nigeria. It is happening in some other countries at the moment. The gatekeepers may not be the ones that would man esports when the federations are being set up. That will be a painful thing for me personally, as a Secretary General, to be relating, with all due respect, with people who have no clue about esports. But that may end up being what would happen on the African continent. We all know how we had sports federation elections in Nigeria just last year, 2021. It was the same crisis we had in 2017. It was the same crisis we had in 2013. So it's a 4-year affair. Are we going to have the same in esports when esports becomes mainstream? We're seeing it happening already. So the gatekeepers, how do we get them entrenched and being visible and being, taken into consideration in the scheme of things when these organizations are being set up? Because the truth is, we can just be there winking in the dark and saying we are esports this, we are esports that. But when the country wants to consider those who would man esports as a federation or as an organization, you are not called up to that table. And it becomes painful because you think, oh, we've invested so much into it. So for us at the GEF, we're looking at how we can marry both sides. That's the government side. And the current gatekeepers who definitely are not recognized by the government at the moment. Because we can on our fingers count how many countries recognize esports at the moment across the continent. So how do we make sure that these guys play the role of the know-how? They understand it already. How does the government bring them into the scheme of things when they're being set up? So those are some of the things we need to do. And for us, those are the kind of sit down and talk we need to have. I'll put this out there, and I don't know how many of the current members are listening. The announcement was made in September. How many members have reached out to myself or the president to say, oh, sir, what's happening with this, what's happening with that, to the president, even if you're not coming to the Secretary General, even though at the end of the day, it still comes down to me, to my table and to my office. But why don't you reach out and say, oh, these are what we think, these are our ideas, these are things we think we should do. Nobody has done that with me as the Secretary General. And we're saying Africa needs something. So if I cook up anything based on what I see in Nigeria and I take it to Tanzania, and it doesn't work for that ecosystem, would you blame me? Or would you blame the Tanzanian who didn't come to the table to say, we don't operate like this, we operate this way?
Mm.
So it's very important we first of all have that conversation. There are plans, there are stuffs that would involve Africa. Like I said, the Global Esports Games is happening. There are some announcements that will be made at the GF level that will involve Africa, definitely. All that are in the works. But there is still the need to domicile and domesticate some things that are Africans for Africans. So in our mandate, there are talks about resources, there are talks about education, there are talks about infrastructural development. How do we cascade it to each of our members and those who will be joining us? Is what is in our thinking at the moment, not necessarily about hosting the biggest tournament or having the biggest gathering or congregation of Africans at the Global Esports Games. Like I mentioned at the beginning, if we're going to all those tournaments, it should be based on quality representation, not necessarily about having a large number there.
Okay, thank you, Shayo, for answering that question. So, closing remarks, Queen Arrow, as we round up, your closing remarks.
So I just want to say thank you once again, Shayo, for at least letting us know um what you have planned for the you and your other colleagues have planned for the African region. I am also going to at least also push on my end on the APC to to do what they can for female representation, as well as, if possible, have a few more games in the lineup for the next games in Istanbul.
Yeah.
And I hope that we can work together to make sure that at least this year we can have more African representation at the games and make sure at least our ecosystems grow some more.
Okay, Omar.
Well, same like Queen Arrow, thanks for coming and everything. But that announcement that you guys keep on teasing us with that's
Everybody keeps
coming this
happy.
year.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Don't disappoint.
Yeah, yeah. Well, looking forward to everybody saying we have something we can.
If
So there's
if
an
if
announcement
if
coming.
if, if there's anything, so if there's anything that you all know, or if you've been following, that is about the GF, it's a strategic body, and like I usually tell my guys at the Lagos Esports Forum, it was deliberate. I saw different organizations, um, but I opted and told and sold the membership of the GF to members of my team, and I told them this I believe, and for me, I would say in 2 years, if Africa has enjoyed a certain level of participation and involvement to this level, because let's not forget the setting up of the AEDF also caught the attention of some people who went ahead to do the same. And like I said, it's down to strategy. It's a strategic move from the GF, and that's why we take things in the strides. The GF builds; it doesn't jump. When you build up, you stay there. When you jump up, you come down. So we're building to it, and trust me, we don't just say there's an announcement if there is no announcement. And that's all I will say for now. We can keep our fingers crossed. There will be challenges. Let's not forget, I mentioned already the challenges with our ecosystem as Africans. How do we subvert that? And the beauty of what we have at the GF is that we didn't just name ourselves into this role. So I didn't just wake up and say, I'm Secretary General. We were appointed into this role. So it means that there's a strata. And we're blessed to have a veteran sports administrator as the president. And in my humble self, one who understands sports marketing, branding, and a little bit, even though I'm not a Gen Z, but a little bit of the Gen Z. So we have a blend of someone who can flow with the older guys, the older generation, who are at the moment are the gatekeepers across sports and esports, and someone as the SecGen who can flow with the younger generation in there. So it's strategic, and we'll build up to ensure that Africa enjoys the very best when it comes to esports on the global stage.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Shayo. That is all the time we have. I know we could go on and on, but time will not permit us. Thank you so much for taking time out. Queen Arrow, also thank you for
Always a
joining
pleasure.
us. Umar, thank you also for being the co-anchor. if you want to catch this, it's available on YouTube, and it's also going to be available on your audio podcast. Any podcast platform you use on your mobile phone, you'll be able to listen to it starting Wednesday. So if you're using Spotify or you're using Google Podcast or using Apple Podcast, whichever one you use, you will be able to catch this interesting conversation. And let's not say bye bye for now. We'll see you next week for more interesting conversations. Viewers and listeners, thank you once again. See you next time.